Have you ever belted out a stadium anthem only to realize you were screaming a punchline to a private joke? Many defining hits in rock history were never meant to be heard. They started as studio pranks, drunken bar bets, or sarcastic jabs, yet somehow these throwaway gags hijacked the charts. Wait until we reach number one, where a track written to mock a dying genre accidentally became its absolute masterpiece. Today we are counting down 10 insane joke songs that became global hits. Number 10, Turning Japanese by The Vapors, 1980. Imagine writing a painfully honest song about losing your mind over a breakup, only for the entire world to think you are making a dirty joke. David Fenton, the frontman of The Vapors, just wanted to capture that restless, paranoid feeling of staring at a photograph of a lost love. The phrase turning Japanese was just a random piece of wordplay. It meant turning into someone else completely.
So I can look at you from inside as well. You got me turning up.
Inside the studio, legendary producer Vic Coppersmith Heaven helped them layer a pseudo-oriental guitar riff over a frantic punk pop beat. The result sounded exactly like a nervous breakdown you could dance to. But when the record hit the airwaves, a bizarre rumor spread like wildfire. Listeners convinced themselves it was a crude euphemism. The band tried to explain the truth, but nobody cared. The controversy was simply too entertaining.
I see the staring and there's nothing else to do.
Driven by this scandalous misunderstanding, the track shot to number 3 in the UK and topped the charts in Australia. It is a puzzling piece of pop history. The Vapors poured their hearts into a track about alienation, but the public twisted it into an accidental punchline. They were forever branded as a one-hit wonder, trapped inside an insane joke they never even told. Yet that twitchy rhythm proved surprisingly enduring, echoing in movies and pop culture decades later. Sometimes you do not get to decide what your art means once it leaves your hands.
No sex, no drugs, no wine, no women, no fun, no sin.
Leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Share your hometown with pride. You might discover that others nearby are enjoying this very song too. Number 9, Black Betty by Ram Jam, 1977.
Black Betty had a child, bam-a-lam, the damn thing gone wild, bam-a-lam.
Sometimes the most enduring anthems start as pure studio filler. Bill Bartlett of Ram Jam brought an old African-American work song into the sessions just to mess around. The goal was not a polished pop masterpiece. He just wanted to see how loud and distorted an acoustic folk tune could get when plugged into an electric amp. It was a casual jam session meant to blow off steam.
She really gets me high, bam-a-lam, you know that's no lie, bam-a-lam.
They cranked the distortion to the absolute limit. The repetitive drumming ignored all traditional pop structures. It was raw, primitive, and unapologetically noisy.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
When it hit the airwaves, it was incredibly polarizing. Civil rights groups protested the lyrical origins, trying to ban it from the radio. But instead of burying the track, the controversy only fueled the fire. It crashed into the top 20 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and reached the top 10 in the UK. Why does this belong on a list of accidental hits? Because Ram Jam never intended for this to be their legacy. It was a throwaway experiment, a loud studio prank played on an old folk tune. Yet that very lack of seriousness created a surprisingly enduring magic. The band soon faded away, but this accidental storm of rhythm became a permanent fixture in sports arenas worldwide. A careless studio jam, outlasting carefully planned epics.
Well, she's shaking that thing, bam-a-lam, boy, she makes me sing, bam-a-lam.
Number 8, Lola by The Kinks, 1970.
Girls will be boys and boys will be girls.
Imagine taking a hilarious late-night anecdote from a Soho club and turning it into a cultural touchstone. Frontman Ray Davies heard a funny story about the band manager getting drunk and dancing with a beautiful woman, who turned out not to be a woman at all. Instead of mocking the situation, Davies saw a brilliant narrative about youthful confusion. The studio process was just as dramatic as the lyrics. Blending a crisp acoustic guitar with heavy electric riffs created a wonderfully textured sound. But the real chaos happened right before release. Davies had to fly over 3,000 miles back to London just to re-record one single word, changing Coca-Cola to Cherry Cola to bypass a strict BBC advertising ban. When the song dropped, radio networks panicked. In 1970, themes of gender ambiguity were considered completely taboo. Many stations banned it outright, fearing it was too polarizing for the public. But the listeners heard something the critics missed. They heard honesty. Driven by its undeniable melody, the track soared to number 2 in the UK and number 9 in the US.
She walked up to me and she asked me to dance.
What began as a drunken joke to laugh at over a pint of beer transformed into a fearless anthem. The Kinks took a punchline and elevated it with deep empathy. Today it is praised as a masterpiece decades ahead of its time. Number 7. Escape by Rupert Holmes, 1979.
If you like pina coladas.
Have you ever been so completely bored with your daily routine that you decided to write a cynical joke just to entertain yourself? Well, to be honest, that is exactly how the final US number 1 hit of the 70s was born. Rupert Holmes was a highly respected songwriter, but one night he was just tired of being serious.
It was my own lovely lady.
He sketched a sarcastic story about a married couple trying to cheat on each other through newspaper ads, only to accidentally match on a blind date. You know, the funniest part is the opening line. He originally wrote, "If you like Humphrey Bogart," but at the very last second, he swapped it for a tropical cocktail he had never even tasted.
I was tired of my lady.
To give the track a hypnotic and lazy feel, he layered 2 parallel drum tracks. Those layered drums sounded thick and relaxed, perfectly capturing the vibe of a vacation no one actually went on. It was literally a throwaway comedy sketch set to music.
That you like pina coladas.
But the joke was entirely on him. Listeners devoured the twist ending. Sarcasm aside, it became a massive hit. Critics rolled their eyes and dismissed it as cheap pop, completely missing the brilliant storytelling hiding behind that breezy synthesizer. Why is this the ultimate joke song? Because he wrote a sarcastic jab at infidelity and the world decided it was a masterpiece. It proves that sometimes the tracks we write just to make ourselves laugh end up outliving our most serious ambitions.
At a bar full of valleys.
Number 6, Short People by Randy Newman, 1977.
You got to pick 'em up just to say hello.
Imagine writing a brilliant satire about the absurdity of prejudice, only to receive actual death threats from listeners who took every single word literally. That is the puzzling legacy of Randy Newman. He wanted to expose how ridiculous bigotry truly is by picking the most harmless physical trait to attack: height.
Don't want no short people.
Wrapped in a cheerful and bouncy arrangement, the track featured rich vocal harmonies that even included Glenn Frey from the Eagles. It sounded like a warm summer breeze, completely masking a biting social commentary. But the irony went entirely over the heads of the public. Furious listeners protested, and some states even tried to ban it from the airwaves.
Short people got no reason to live.
Yet, amidst the massive outrage, the single stubbornly climbed all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Why does this stand as one of the most fascinating joke songs in history? Because Newman told a dark joke about human ignorance, and the world proved his point by failing to understand it. It is a cultural anomaly, a masterclass in songwriting that conquered the charts while being completely misunderstood.
Just the same as you and I.
If you've ever shared a meaningful memory with this song, leave a comment with the number 6. It's my way of knowing we're remembering those moments together. Number 5, Blitzkrieg Bop by Ramones, 1976.
Hey, ho, let's go. Hey, ho, let's go.
Sometimes the most profound musical revolutions start out as a sarcastic prank. By the mid-70s, mainstream rock had become bloated with 10-minute solos and overly complex arrangements. Dee Ramone wanted to mock this pretension. He came up with a simple, almost cartoonish crowd chant, "Hey ho, let us go." It was meant to be a deliberate jab at the silly pop chants of the era, a joke aimed directly at the musical elite. To fully commit to this rebellious punchline, guitarist Johnny Ramone stripped away all technical rules. There were no solos, no expensive pedals. He just plugged straight into the amplifier and used brutal downpicking to create a primitive wall of sound. Mainstream radio stations completely rejected it. They thought it was too raw and far too short to be taken seriously. But in the damp underground clubs of America and the UK, the youth heard something entirely different. They did not hear a joke, they heard pure liberation. While it did not dominate the Billboard charts upon release, it quietly earned gold status and defined a generation. It is the ultimate joke song because it was designed to be as simple and ridiculous as possible to annoy the experts. Yet it accidentally ignited the global punk rock movement. A mocking chant that outlived the very stadium rock it was making fun of. Number 4, My Sharona by The Knack, 1979. Sometimes a cultural anomaly is born not from deep artistic ambition, but from pure impulse. Doug Fieger was 25 when he walked into a clothing store and became entirely captivated by a 17-year-old clerk named Sharona. He channeled that restless energy into a quick sketch.
Running down the length of my thighs, Sharona.
The famous stuttering vocal was actually just a joke. Fieger was simply messing around and warming up his voice on the microphone. But the producer recognized the raw magic in that unpolished moment. Guitarist Burton Avere threw the core riff together in under 15 minutes.
My Sharona.
Music critics completely dismissed the track as shallow pop, entirely missing the point. They judged the aggressive lyrics while listeners embraced the undeniable groove. It dominated the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 straight weeks. It is a surprisingly enduring piece of music because it was never meant to be a serious statement. It was a 15-minute flirtation that accidentally defined late 70s rock. Oh, and Doug and Sharona actually dated for 4 years.
Or is it just a game in my mind, Sharona?
Number 3, Stayin' Alive by Bee Gees, 1977. What happens when you write a desperate song about urban survival, but the whole world decides to dance to it? Under immense pressure to write for a movie they had not even seen, the brothers Gibb crafted a rather dark narrative about the gritty streets of New York. Behind the scenes, a technical miracle occurred. When their drummer had to abruptly leave the sessions, they physically cut a piece of tape from a previous track and spliced it together. This created the first complete drum loop in music history, locked at exactly 103 beats per minute. The irony of this track is truly fascinating. It topped the Billboard charts and became the shining beacon of the disco era. The band felt misunderstood as their serious commentary on struggling to survive was treated like a superficial party anthem. Yet this polarizing contradiction makes it the ultimate ironic hit. a song about barely hanging on, accidentally became an immortal symbol of confidence and swagger. Number 2, Lean Eyes by Eagles, 1975. Sometimes the most heartbreaking pieces of art begin as a casual insult. Glenn Frey and Don Henley were having a drink at a famous LA bar when they noticed a beautiful young woman walking in with a much older, wealthy man. Frey chuckled and muttered to his friend, "Look at her, she cannot even hide those lion eyes." That cynical observation could have easily faded away with the night. Instead, they scribbled lyrics onto a cocktail napkin.
She is headed for the cheating side of town.
Back in the studio, the band transformed that barroom judgment into a beautifully textured narrative. They wrapped this harsh story of deceit and compromise in warm acoustic guitars and complex vocal harmonies that took days to perfect.
Honey, you can't hide your lying eye.
It climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won a Grammy. Critics initially thought the track was too long for radio, but listeners recognized their own neighbors in that painfully honest narrative. Why does this belong on a list of joke songs? Because it started as a whispered punchline between two guys having a beer, a passing joke about strangers. Yet they elevated that fleeting mockery into an empathetic and surprisingly enduring ballad about the heavy price of pretending.
She draws a shade and hangs her head to cry.
Number 1, Born to Be Alive by Patrick Hernandez, 1979.
I'll never find a place to stop and settle down.
What happens when you actively try to write a shallow song to mock a musical trend, only to accidentally capture the absolute joy of an entire decade? Patrick Hernandez originally wrote this track as a heavy rock anthem. But as the disco fever swept the globe, he decided to play a cynical trick.
It's good to be alive.
He rearranged it into a dance track, deliberately making the lyrics repetitive and the synthesizers as flashy as possible to poke fun at the genre. Behind the scenes, the production was meant to be unapologetically over the top. As a fascinating piece of trivia, when he traveled to New York to hire backup dancers for his tour, he selected an unknown 19-year-old named Madonna. Despite his sarcastic intentions, the public did not hear a parody. They heard an irresistible celebration of life. It sold over 25 million copies worldwide and topped charts in over 50 countries. Why does this take our crown for the ultimate joke song? Because Hernandez constructed a calculated parody of a polarizing trend, yet accidentally created a surprisingly enduring cultural anomaly. He retired off the royalties of a single sarcastic track that perfectly bottled the spirit of the 70s. From a spliced tape loop that defined the disco era, to a 15-minute crush that conquered the late 70s, and a cynical barroom insult that won a Grammy. These accidental masterpieces prove that perfection is not always carefully planned. Sometimes the most enduring magic happens when we stop taking ourselves so seriously and simply let the studio tape roll. If you want to keep this time machine running, hit subscribe and join our late-night broadcasts. Which of these unexpected radio anthems surprised you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep the vinyl spinning.